It wasn't supposed to go down like this. I had no intention of ending up at that party. It wasn't even my scene. But the way things were going with her, things were starting to feel stale. The conversations had become routine, and the evenings were always the same. Work, dinner, a little TV, maybe some time on the couch. We'd drifted. I could feel it even if she wouldn't admit it. And when the opportunity came to break the pattern, I jumped on it. The invite came from an old friend of mine, Mike, and at first, I wasn't sure. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't want to sit home with her, pretending everything was fine. Maybe it was just me, but I wanted something different for once. I told her I was going to grab a few drinks with some friends. She didn't even bat an eye. And I could tell she wasn't all that into spending the evening with me either. It was the same routine for her too. I think we both felt it, but we were too proud or too tired to confront it. So, I left. When I showed up at the party, the place was already buzzing. The music was loud, people were laughing, and drinks were flowing. I stood by the door for a moment, scanning the crowd, feeling that odd mix of excitement and discomfort. It wasn't like I didn't know anyone there, but I wasn't in the mood to jump into small talk either. However, and as soon as I spotted a few familiar faces, I found myself drifting toward them. I ended up getting caught up in the energy of the night, and something I hadn't realized I needed until then. There were a few girls I knew from the past, and yeah, we started talking. Nothing serious, and just casual stuff at first. But as the night wore on, it felt like the conversations were getting a little more intense. I wouldn't say I was flirting, but I guess I was giving off that vibe without thinking. It felt good. It felt like I was actually being seen again. Like I wasn't just the guy stuck in the same old rut. I didn't even think about her, honestly. She wasn't there. And part of me felt like maybe it was better that way. I had to admit it, deep down, I was relieved to not have her there, questioning everything I did. I know that sounds messed up, but at that point, it was just the truth. I was talking to a couple of people, laughing, and just enjoying myself for the first time in a while when I noticed her. I didn't see her come in, didn't hear the door open, but suddenly, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw her standing there. She was by the entrance, like she didn't even know how to step into the room. At first, I didn't even recognize her. I mean, I knew it was her, but there was something different about her. She was dressed up in a way that made her look more like a stranger than someone I'd been living with for years. I felt this sharp spike of panic. Why? And because I realized I hadn't thought about her once since I'd walked through the door. Not a single thought about how she'd feel when she found out I was here, with other women, laughing and chatting. I didn't think about how she might feel about the attention I was getting, or how I'd look with a drink in my hand, talking to other girls. I didn't think of anything. The thing was, I didn't even try to hide it. I should have known better, I guess. She could see everything. And the way I was leaning in a little too close to the girl beside me, the way I was laughing a little too loud at something one of them said, the whole scene probably looked worse than it was. I tried to keep my cool, but I could feel my heart rate picking up. I knew the way she was standing there, arms crossed, stiff as a board, it wasn't good. I stood frozen for a second, not sure if I should walk up to her or stay where I was. I wanted to do the right thing, but what was the right thing? Should I be apologizing for having fun at a party? Should I try to explain that it was just friendly conversation, nothing more? And I couldn't even hear the music anymore. All I could hear was the sound of my thoughts racing in my head, screaming at me to do something. She didn't make a move. She just stood there. I swear it felt like she was waiting for me to come to her, and like she was expecting me to come crawling back with some half-assed excuse. I don't know why, but I couldn't move. I didn't go to her right away. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was fear. I don't know. A few seconds passed, maybe more, and then she took a step forward. She walked up to me with that look on her face, the one that said, "I'm not angry. I'm disappointed." And I instantly felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "You really couldn't just stay home, could you?" Her voice was calm, but the undercurrent of hurt in it made it feel like she'd slapped me across the face. I didn't say anything right away. What was there to say? "You're really out here, acting like this." She glanced at the girls around me, her eyes briefly scanning the scene. Then, she looked back at me. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes, they weren't. I could see the disappointment, the confusion, the pain. The worst part, I deserved it. I started, but my words caught in my throat. What was I supposed to say? "I didn't think you'd, I don't know, care." That sounded stupid as soon as I said it, and she knew it. She wasn't buying it. She didn't respond right away. Instead, she turned her back to me and started walking toward the door. I felt this wave of coldness wash over me. She was leaving. She was walking out. For good, and maybe. And I stood there like an idiot, paralyzed, watching her go. What had just happened? It was like I couldn't believe it, and couldn't process it fast enough. She hadn't even given me a chance to explain myself. She didn't need one. She was already gone. It didn't hit me right away that she wasn't just walking out the door. She was leaving me, at least for that moment, and I was standing there, and frozen in the middle of the party with people who had no idea what was going on. And just like that, everything I thought I was enjoying, the music, and the conversation, the fleeting attention, suddenly felt empty, hollow, like I was in some kind of dream trying to scream, but couldn't. I couldn't stay there. Not anymore. I left the group and followed her out. The cold air hit me like a slap in the face, and for a moment, I thought about turning around. But no, I had to go after her. I had to fix this. By the time I reached her, she was already standing by her car, and her back to me, arms crossed tightly. She didn't even look at me as I approached. I could feel her stiffening even before I said a word. "Wet. Please," I said, trying to get her attention. She didn't turn around, didn't even flinch. Just go home," she muttered, and her voice shaking, and it hit me like a freight train. She wasn't angry. She wasn't looking for a fight. She was hurting. And it was my fault. She didn't want to hear anything I had to say. I stood there, feeling the weight of everything that had just happened. It wasn't just the party or the girls. It was everything, all of it. The little things I'd been neglecting. The moments where I'd taken her for granted. I had let it build up until she couldn't take it anymore. I wanted to say something, anything, but I knew she wouldn't listen. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. I left the party with a knot in my stomach, and, already knowing things were about to change in ways I wasn't ready for. It wasn't until later that night, after I'd gone home and sat in the dark, waiting for her to come back, that everything started to unravel. I sat on the couch, staring at the TV, not really seeing it. My mind was still back at the party, replaying the moments over and over in my head. The look on her face when she saw me. The way she walked out without saying much. I kept thinking maybe if I had done something differently, if I'd just left with her, maybe I could have avoided what was coming. But the truth was, I'd been too wrapped up in myself, too consumed by whatever it was I was trying to escape from. When she finally came back around midnight, she didn't say anything right away. I heard the door creak open, then the soft sound of her shoes hitting the floor as she stepped inside. I didn't know what to say, so I stayed quiet, watching the shadows move on the wall. She stood in the doorway, her arms still crossed, her eyes cold. I could feel the tension thick in the air, and like I was waiting for her to explode, but she didn't. Instead, she let out a slow breath and said, "I know where you were tonight, and I know who you were with." That hit me hard. I wasn't prepared for that. I thought maybe she'd just been upset about the scene at the party. The attention I'd been getting, but no, she was talking about something else. Something bigger. I looked at her, unsure if I should speak or just let her go on. But I could see the pain in her eyes, and it made my stomach churn. It wasn't just disappointment anymore. It was something darker, something deeper. I've known for a while, she said, and her voice barely above a whisper. I've seen the signs, the late nights, the sudden changes. You think I'm blind. I felt like I was going to pass out. The words didn't make sense at first. What? I've seen your texts? Your messages, she continued. I've seen the way you've been pulling away, and I've seen how you've been talking to other women when I'm not around. I felt my heart drop straight into my stomach. A wave of nausea hit me, and I had to take a step back. She knew? I tried to speak, but my mouth felt dry. I had to swallow hard before I could even form a sentence. What are you talking about? What do you mean? I stammered, and even though I had a sinking feeling in my gut that I already knew. Don't play dumb, Ryan, she snapped, her eyes flashing. I'm not stupid, and I know about the texts you've been sending her. The girl from work. And the one you said was just a friend. She was practically shaking with anger now, but it wasn't the kind of anger that made me want to fight back. It was the kind of anger that came from deep hurt. She wasn't mad because I was out at the party with other girls. She was mad because she had caught me lying to her. I took a step back, trying to absorb what she had just said. My head was spinning, my thoughts were racing, and I couldn't focus on anything. You've been checking my messages? I didn't have to, she said, her voice breaking. It was there, all out in the open. You think I don't notice the way you're suddenly too busy to talk at night, or how you're always sneaking around. I know when you're hiding something, Ryan, and I know it wasn't just tonight. Her words hit me like bricks, each one crushing me more than the last. I felt the floor beneath me start to crack, and I knew deep down that I couldn't deny it anymore. I hadn't just been careless tonight. I'd been careless for months. I'd been pushing her away, lying to her, taking her for granted in ways I hadn't even realized. I had allowed myself to slip, to get comfortable in the lies I told, the half-truths I fed her, and now it was all coming back to me. The realization of it, the weight of it, was suffocating. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, I managed to say, but even as I said the words, I could hear how empty they sounded, how hollow. You didn't mean for it? That's what you're going with, Ryan? She said, her voice thick with emotion. You didn't mean for it. What was I supposed to think when I was sitting here alone, day after day, waiting for you to come home, and while you were out there pretending that everything was fine? I opened my mouth to apologize, but it felt useless. What could I say? Nothing I said would fix it. Nothing I said would take away the hurt I had caused her. I don't even know who you are anymore, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. That was the hardest thing I'd ever heard. I had always thought that she was the one who was lost, but in that moment, I realized it was me. I was the one who had been lost. I had let everything slip through my fingers, the trust, the bond we'd built, and the love that had once been so strong between us. All of it gone, and I had no one to blame but myself. She didn't say anything else. She just turned away from me, her body trembling as she walked up the stairs to our bedroom. I stood there, frozen, unable to move, unable to speak. What could I say? I had destroyed everything. I had ruined the one thing that mattered most. She hadn't just walked out of the party that night. She had walked out of my life. And as I stood there, listening to the silence in the house, I knew it was all my fault. I spent the rest of that night in the living room, completely numb, trying to come to terms with what had happened. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the empty space around me. Every part of me wanted to go up to her, to apologize, to beg her to come back down, to fix this. But I knew deep down it wasn't that simple. I had made a mess of everything. All the things I had taken for granted, and all the moments I'd ignored her needs, all the lies I had told, came crashing down on me with brutal force. I kept replaying her words in my head. "I don't even know who you are anymore." It was the truth. Somewhere along the way, I'd lost myself, and in doing so, I had lost her too. At some point I must have drifted off to sleep. The next morning I woke up early to an empty house. She was gone. The bed was untouched, and the silence deafening. I felt like I was suffocating. She hadn't even left a note. I didn't know if that was good or bad, but it felt like the final nail in the coffin. I tried calling her, but her phone went straight to voicemail. I left a few messages, rambling apologies that I knew wouldn't mean anything. I kept saying things like, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen," or, "I'll do whatever it takes to fix this." But the truth was, it didn't matter what I said anymore. She'd heard all the empty words before. She didn't need apologies. She needed me to show up, and I hadn't. I hadn't been the man she needed me to be. The rest of that day felt like I was walking through a fog. I couldn't focus on anything. My mind kept going back to the party, the way I'd ignored her, the way I'd let her walk out of my life without even trying to stop her. And I couldn't stop the guilt that gnawed at me. The guilt of knowing I'd betrayed her, emotionally and physically, and without even realizing how deep the wound I was causing had gone. The guilt of knowing that I had taken everything for granted. The love she had shown me, the trust she had placed in me. And now it was gone, just like that. That night, I stayed up late, sitting on the couch again, waiting. I didn't know what I was waiting for, but I couldn't bring myself to go to bed. At around 10 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a message from her. "I need space. I can't do this right now. I'm staying with my sister for a while. Don't try to call me. I'll reach out when I'm ready." That was it. No explanation. No attempt to fix anything. Just a simple statement, as if she was closing the door on me. The message felt like a punch to the gut, but honestly, it was the only thing that made sense. I knew she needed time. Hell, she deserved time. She deserved a lot more than I had given her. And I couldn't expect her to come back to me just because I said I was sorry. I knew that, but that didn't make it any easier. The next few days were torture. Every minute without her felt like an eternity. I tried to keep busy, but nothing helped. Every time I picked up my phone, I hoped to see a message from her. Every time I opened the door, I half expected to see her standing there, looking at me, waiting for me to say something that would fix everything. But she didn't come. And every night, I fell asleep to the sound of silence. A week passed, and I didn't hear from her. At that point, I realized that my apology meant nothing unless I proved it. Words were just that, words. She didn't need them anymore. She needed action. I knew what I had to do. I started working on myself, and finally facing the truths I had been avoiding for so long. I dug into the reasons why I had pulled away from her in the first place, and I had to understand myself, my faults, my fears, before I could even think about trying to fix what I had broken. I made changes in my life, and big and small. I started to go to therapy, because I knew I needed to work through whatever had made me check out of my marriage. I started paying more attention to the things that really mattered, the people I loved, the relationships I had neglected, and the parts of myself I had abandoned. But none of that was enough. It wasn't until I was fully honest with myself that I realized how much I had taken her for granted. She wasn't just the woman I'd married. She was the person who had always been there for me. She had always been my safe place, and I had treated her like an afterthought. The hardest thing I've ever done in my life was driving to her sister's house that afternoon, and not knowing what I would say or whether she would even let me in. But I had to try. I knew if I didn't, I'd live with the regret forever. And her sister let me in, and after a long, uncomfortable silence, she told me that she needs time. I understood that. I told her I'd give her all the time she needed, but that I would never stop fighting for her. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if she'll ever forgive me. I don't know if we'll ever be the same, but I do know that I've learned the hardest lesson of my life, and I learned that love isn't something you can take for granted. It's something you have to show, day in and day out. It's something you have to work for. And if she ever gives me the chance, I'll do whatever it takes to earn her trust back. But that's not something I can demand. It's something I'll have to prove, one day at a time.